Welcome to One and All. This is Matthias 76. Together, today, we're going deep in the Word of God, digging into the book of Daniel. And so doing, we do prepare ourselves. We allow the Holy Spirit through His Word to prepare us to decode the deception. Never forget that the first thing Jesus says when the disciples ask him about what is to come and what will be the signs of his return at the end of the age, the first thing he says is, be not deceived. Watch out. Don't be deceived. So we always need to be on guard. We need to remain vigilant. We need to make sure that we do not feel overwhelmed by the mighty forces of evil that seem to be on the increase, growing all around us. They are. That is true. But we need to remember whose we are, whom we serve, and who it is who watches over us, guides us, protects us, and promises throughout the scriptures that he is always working things out for our good, that he is always protecting us, that our salvation is what his plan is all about. So it doesn't matter what we see in the world. We need to be aware of it. We need to make sure that we're not deceived, but we need to also make sure, by the grace of God, that we are not overwhelmed by it. There's a difference between being aware of it and being overwhelmed by it. And the adversary wants to overwhelm us. He wants a flood of bad news, of despair, of dissipation, of destruction on every side to undo us and to make us think that God's arm is now short, that it's not mighty, that he can't reach out and protect us and save us and take care of us. So perspective. If we're going to make sure that we are not deceived, it is about perspective. And that always comes down to knowing who I am, whose I am, and who I serve, and who it is who watches over me. So we're in Daniel, and we're at a very important point in Daniel. We're in Daniel chapter 7. We're in Daniel chapter 7 with Daniel's vision of the four beasts. So we go here on the page to Daniel, and as we talk about this today, keep this image that I have as the page image for for the study of the book of Daniel in mind, because this is an excellent picture depicting the four beasts that Daniel sees. Now, this vision, and we'll scroll down to the bottom here because we've got resources out here for you. This vision, as far as the timeline goes, this vision, we'll get to the timeline of Daniel's life here. It's right down here at the bottom. You can click on that. When you do, it'll pop open, be bigger within your web browser, and you can scroll around and look at it. I'm going to go to it in my study Bible because it's easier for me to navigate from there. But this vision, what we just talked about in the book of Daniel, what we just talked about was Daniel thrown into the den of lions. And on the timeline, and this, as we mentioned last time, this timeline's pretty accurate. We're at about 537 BC. But the way Daniel structured his book is the historical information precedes the apocalyptic, the visions that he has about what is to come and about the end times. So if you go down here on the timeline, we'll zoom in here. Daniel sees a vision of four beasts. We're at 553 BC because it was right after Belshazzar began to reign. So we were just in 537 BC. So again, that just ties in with the structure of how Daniel chose, by inspiration of the Spirit, to arrange his book. Now, I want to talk about beasts. We have, and it just so happens, and I guess it just so happens because I've been so tardy in getting my Revelation video out, the next Revelation video out, which is about to happen, putting a lot of work into it because it's about really important stuff. And once you put a video out, you can't take it back. So I want to make sure and get things correct. But we're talking about the beasts in Revelation. There in Revelation 13, there are two beasts. There is a beast from the sea called Forth by the Dragon, a beast from the sea, and there is the beast from the earth. Well, the beast from the sea is basically a hybridized amalgamation of the four beasts of Daniel. So these things all tie together. But it's talking about, and we'll get to this, it's talking about empires. And we could say nations, but I want to use the word empire because empire has a broader meaning, and it is more specific to what the text is talking about, a broader meaning than nations. A nation is geographically defined. It's got boundaries. That's where it is. You can talk about the politics of it, the people, the language, all of that. But an empire is different. An empire takes other territory and brings other territory, other nations into submission under it. And they're not nice. And I don't care the version of history that you read, more than likely, that you definitely what you were taught in school, the version of history that you read puts a shine on the apple of the British Empire. It denies altogether that the United States is an empire, but empires they are. And empires are big, and empires, they're not very nice. They smash, they crush, they destroy, they take what they want. And there's a reason that, and I know I've got an international audience, and those in the international audience will be going, well, duh. There's a reason the rest of the world looks at the United States the way they do. Because the United States operates as an empire, but we try to hide it. We deny that we are an empire. But Cuba and the Philippines and all of those nations we overthrow in South America, they would view things differently. So, empires, beasts. When you hear the word beast, do you think of something nice and fuzzy and cute and cuddly? Or do you think of something terrifying and awful and destructive? It is the latter. Now, we use the term beasts of burden, but even beasts, when you talk about an ox or a bull being a beast, they're big and powerful and scary if you're up close to them in confined quarters. So this idea of empires being presented as beasts, it isn't a positive thing. It is a frightening thing, and we're going to see that in the way these beasts are depicted. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions of his head as he lay in his bed. Then he wrote down the dream and told the sum of the matter. Now, it is interesting. Daniel writes in the third person here. It's interesting. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts came out of the sea, different from one another. Now, it's time to remind ourselves of the worldview, the cosmic geography, the take on things that people in this time had that we don't. Okay. The sea is chaos. The sea is frightening. Good things don't come from the sea. Yeah, around the edges, you can catch fish, and fish are good. You go out there too far, and really bad things happen. There are beasts, there are waves, there's unpredictability, all of that. The image of the sea is not positive. That's why it pictures in heaven that there is no longer any sea. And when it does describe a sea, it's smooth as glass, it's tranquil, it's been conquered. Okay. So in their take on things and the way they viewed and understood things, the sea was chaos. And you've got the four winds of heaven, and four great beasts, four throughout the scriptures, especially. We'll just zero in on the apocalyptic literature, meaning Daniel and the book of Revelation in particular. 4 is the number of the earth. You have 4 points on a compass: north, south, east, west. 4 is things of the world. And with all that in mind, why is the sea chaotic? Who rules this world? Who has power and dominion? Who said to Jesus in his temptation in the wilderness, bow down and worship me, and all these things I will give to you? And Jesus didn't say it's not yours to give. He didn't say that. The rule of this world it is Satan's. It's his. That's why the sea is chaos. That's why this world is ruled by beasts that operate like and in the service of their master, Satan. And remember, Deuteronomy 32, Genesis 11, God divided the nations. He started anew with Abram and Israel. But the nations were assigned to the B'nai Elohim. And they, as the nations had, they went rogue. And it is no small thing. In Revelation, the dragon has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast of the earth, or the beast of the sea, rather, that represents secular and civil government empires, it has 7 heads and 10 horns. That's not a coincidence. It's because the powers of this world know whom they serve, and they resemble him. And they resemble him in how they operate. How do they operate? Well, they operate through deception. Look at the bills here in the United States, and if you're in Australia, England, wherever else, translate to your country. They give the laws that they pass names that are the exact opposite of what they are. Let's take Social Security. It's a lie. Let's take the Federal Reserve Act. That's 3 lies for the price of 1. It's not federal, there are no reserves, and it's a private bank. Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. And what is Satan called in John 8:44? The father of lies. The father of lies. When he lies, he speaks his native tongue. So, is it any surprise that in Revelation 13, the dragon, Satan, who has 7 heads and 10 horns, calls forth from the sea a beast that has 7 heads and 10 horns. And that beast that he calls forth from the sea, guess who it looks like? Pull it up here. Where'd we go? That beast is a combination of these four. So, point being, the connection between Daniel 7 and Revelation 13 is inescapable. But this is about the beast, the four great beasts. They came up out of the sea. We're in verse 3, different from one another, and yet similar. The first, and let's talk about it. They're different but similar. I just can't help myself today. How is a lion different than a leopard? Well, you can talk about all kinds of things, all the different ways that they're different. If you're out in the true wilds of Africa, not the national park wilds where the animals are used to people and walk right by the tourist Jeep or Land Rover, out in the true wilds of Africa, if you're being mauled by a leopard or a lion, what's the difference? If you're in the Pacific Northwest, up into Canada, and you're being mauled by a grizzly bear, would you stop and think, while it was, and I'm being observed for a reason, would you stop and think, I think this would be better if I were being mauled by a lion? Or maybe a leopard. I prefer the leopard. Not that I have a chance either way, but a leopard might just be less painful as it uses its claws to tear me to shreds and holds onto my throat with its teeth. Yeah, that'd be better. No, a beast is a beast, but they're different. How they kill you is going to be different. But the point is, they can all do the same thing, and they do. They're different from each other, but a beast is a beast. A lion will kill you. A leopard will kill you. What's the difference? A leopard can climb a tree to come after you, and the lion can't as easily. Maybe that's different. I don't know. I have never been mauled by either one and have no intention to. Different from one another. Verse 4, the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one, like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, arise, devour much flesh. After this, I looked, and behold, another, like a leopard, with 4 wings of a bird on its back, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it. It had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the little horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I read through this, and I've been preparing for this, and I think, how in the world am I even going to get through this in one session? There is so much here. Let's talk about the beasts. We have 4 of them pictured here. I'm going to pop them up on the screen again. Okay, the first is the lion with wings. The wings were plucked off, and it stood up like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. Let's just real quickly do which kingdoms these things represent, okay? Because they do. They represent specific, identifiable kingdoms. The lion is Babylon. The lion is Babylon. And you can go back to Daniel 3 with the statue, with the gold, the silver, the bronze, and the iron, and see these same kingdoms represented there. And that's the beauty of picture language. Picture language it's flexible, it's malleable. You can describe something as a head of gold and then describe it as a lion. It allows fluidity in understanding and interpretation and all kinds of things. And that really comes into play in the book of Revelation, of application in different times of the same truth. But we've got the lion is Babylon. The bear is the kingdom that was ruling at the time that Daniel wrote, the Medo-Persian, the Medes and the Persians empire, the bear, and we'll talk about how it was described. But the lion was what? It had its wings plucked off. What happened at the zenith of its power, Babylon's power, Nebuchadnezzar's power? I always manage to sneak in saying his name again. Nebuchadnezzar's power, what happened? He was humiliated. He was laid low. He got his wings plucked off. But then he was restored and his sense came back. The mind of a man was given to it. He stood up on 2 feet, and the mind of a man given to it. Just little hints that, yeah, this is Babylon. The bear, it devours much flesh. The Medes and the Persians conquered a wide swath of the world in the day, and it's still got bones in its teeth. It's obvious this thing's killing and mauling and destroying. Then we come to the four-headed leopard, and it has 4 wings. 4 heads, 4 wings. You would think it would be 8 wings and 4 heads, but it's 4 heads and 4 wings. This is Greece. Specifically, it is Alexander the Great, who moved with great speed across the world. The pace at which Alexander conquered the world is just mind-boggling. So it had 4 wings. Wings in this day always, and it still does today, represent speed. You can get from here to there as the crow flies, as the eagle flies, but it had 4 heads. Alexander the Great conquered the world in just a few years, and then it's most likely he partied himself to death, fell over dead, and his kingdom was divided among his 4 generals. Okay, 4 heads for that leopard. And then comes this beast, which really the only thing it tells us, it's shown here like a dragon, dinosaur kind of thing. And you notice this over here on the side, it's got a wound that was healed, like in Revelation. It's got 10 horns, iron teeth, and the way it's described, it crushes, it smashes and tears to pieces everything. This is a different beast altogether. And this is Rome. This is Rome. Rome conquered the world, controlled the world for an incredibly long time. And here's the thing. If you go to my videos on Revelation 13, the first 6 verses, there are 2 of them, and I will put the link in the description below, but you go to those and I present this, that Rome is the kingdom that didn't go away. It is the beast that didn't go away. And if you think that's not true, then look at the architecture in Washington, D.C. And you can go, it's easy to find, search on YouTube for it's like a computer generated tour through Rome and the way it looked at its apex of power. What is the United States modeled after? What is London modeled after? What is the Vatican modeled after? It had a head that was wounded and yet lived, and everyone marveled at the beast. The Roman Empire really and truly never went away. You are living in the Roman Empire, and those 3 city-states, and that's in the video on Revelation, but it's important because people don't know this stuff. And if you don't know, you can be deceived. If you do know, you're much better protected, informed, so that you can't be deceived. If I understand medicine, you're not selling me snake oil or magic potion or vaccines that aren't really vaccines, because I'm informed. 3 city-states. The Vatican is its own nation. A lot of people will know that. The City of London, a very small area within London itself, is a standalone city-state, and it is the banking capital of the world. And Washington, D.C. is a city-state. It is not properly part of the United States, and that'll blow your mind, but it is the truth, and that relates to the 3 horns that are plucked up and give way to the 1 horn at the end. But that's important stuff. That's important stuff, and they hide it, they obfuscate it, they don't want us to know how the world is really run. And then you can talk about the power behind that, the banking cartels, and now with the massive corporations that have so much power, Apple, Facebook, Google, all of that. It is all part of this, and it is rightly referred to as the beast system. And you don't cross the beast. You don't cross the beast because it has iron teeth and claws, and it will smash and crush and destroy. So all of these things with all of these beasts that come into play, this is a vision for Daniel of what was coming over the next, you could say, 1,000 years, but it's also more, because this beast, the beast that is Rome, doesn't go away. And here's something else with that you can ponder. If that's not the case, if that beast of Rome goes away, then the book of Revelation doesn't touch on what beast it is that's in existence in the end times. And the 10 horns on that beast are representing that it manifested in many different ways throughout the world. And horns are always a sign of power and dominion. But that beast that was the lion, it's Babylon, and its wings were plucked off, and it was stood up and given the mind of a man. The next is the bear, which historically is probably the empire that in the Western world today gets short shrift. It's just not talked about that much. The Medes and the Persians, and probably because then Greece comes along and steals so much thunder. But the empire of the Medes and the Persians was great, and it was mighty. And I will say there are alternative views of which empires are which here. I don't think that they really pass the historical test, and they certainly don't hold together from a biblical interpretation standpoint. The way I'm talking about it here is the most common, and it is really the only one that I believe makes sense, especially as you take this and apply it over into the book of Revelation. So this leopard, it's the one that is said, and dominion was given to it. And it did seem that the entire world, everywhere Alexander the Great went, the world basically fell down and said, okay, kill us, take over. I mean, that's the way it seems. That's not what actually happened. Many places did just say, okay, we'll pay a tribute. You can be in charge. Don't kill us. But there were those who fought and resisted, but no one could stand against him. It's interesting that the fourth beast, he kind of sets it apart as coming in the night. What do we all understand when imagery of the night comes up? We're all scared of the dark. Anybody who says they're not scared of the dark is fooling themselves. We're afraid of the darkness. Now, we got xenon super bright headlights that blind the other people on the road. We've got flashlights that shine amazing distances. You really go out in the night, out in the wilderness, and tell me without a light and tell me that you're not afraid of the dark. You're kidding yourself. The night is scary. The night is unknown. The night brings to mind the fact that there are things out there that can see me just fine, and I can't see them. And they can pursue me, and I can't see them. It's a huge disadvantage. So it's another level of power and fearsomeness that this beast has attributed to it. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. This is in comparison with a lion, a bear with bones in its teeth, and a four-headed leopard. This thing takes being awesome and terrible to a new level altogether. And it had iron teeth. They don't break. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. Think of Rome. Think of the nations that dared defy them. Think of the nations that dared defy them more than once. It was legitimate for you to stand up and fight against us so we couldn't conquer you and take you over, Carthage. But you rebel against us again, and you won't believe what we will do to you. You won't believe, Jerusalem, what we will do to you if you rebel against us. We will make an example of you that is like crushing you with our iron teeth and stamping you with our feet and just rubbing you out all together. That fearsomeness, and that fearsomeness for those in the United States and those who aren't, that fearsomeness that today is best symbolized and represented and seen in the military might of the United States. The message is simple. Don't mess with us. We can blow you up and destroy you so many different ways. And what do all the Americans think? Oh yeah, we're mighty. We're great. Ooh, that's awesome. And they all marveled at the beast. Revelation 13. We find power appealing until the power's turned on us. That's when it changes. We perceive it differently. And it had 10 horns representing many different rulers throughout. It went on for some time, but it's going to come down to 3 and then 1. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one. We'll talk about that, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. So if we're going to hold to, and understand, I'm putting this forth as a plausible and I believe accurate, but it's my thinking, because this is apocalyptic literature. We can't know for sure. I want to know it. I want to understand it. I want to be open to the possibility I may be missing something because I'm not far enough along yet in history to see some things. And with that idea, I want to talk about this, and we'll talk about it in the Revelation video I'm doing this week. A fractal image. Have you ever seen one of those videos of zooming in or zooming out of a fractal image? There's one I found, it goes for 2 hours. And you can just zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, and there's mathematical components to it being a fractal image and all of that forever. And it appears different and yet the same. It appears different, but the same. And I think that the way we need to understand prophecy and this apocalyptic imagery is that and I'll pick Martin Luther, what Martin Luther saw in Rome and the papacy in his day, what he saw there, he could identify with this imagery. But he hadn't seen as much as we have. He hadn't seen the founding of the Jesuit order that was founded to eliminate everyone who believed what Martin Luther taught. He hadn't seen that as a means whereby the papacy really has sway over all the kingdoms of the earth. He hadn't seen that. He hadn't seen the development of London and the United States along with the Vatican after the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. And I know I'm really throwing a lot of historical stuff out there. He hadn't seen that yet, but the prophecy still, he could see their fulfillment in what was going on, because prophecy can be, because it's from God. It's living and active. Not that it changes, but it can be showing what something is. The beast, this terrible beast, was still this beast before the three horns that we're going to talk about here, the Vatican, the City of London, and the United States, before they arose and were even in existence. But now that they are, we can understand. In Luther's day, it had to be about the three kings. Well, what was that? What are those? I don't know. And then the one little one? What's the little one? What is that? Okay. So they're flexible, but yet it's the same truth throughout. What someone sees in one era is true, but a greater fulfillment of that prophecy may be yet to come. So while we work to understand and interpret what we see, we have to be open to, hey, something else could come. Let's go back 50 years. What did the pastor I had as a young child, what did he know about artificial intelligence? What did he know about transhumanism? He would have said, what? Artificial intelligence? What's that? That's some kind of plastic? What artificial? What are you talking about? And he wasn't dumb. He just hadn't seen these things yet. But now we do. Now we do. We see artificial intelligence and know this. And I'm really just throwing stuff out here today, but that's all right. We're in apocalyptic literature. I'm allowed. Know this. The technology that you see is 50 years behind what they really have. The technology you see at play in the world is 50 years behind what they really have. Very important. Very important. So what's really coming with artificial intelligence? What's really going on with artificial intelligence? What abilities of transhumanism do they already possess, but they're just not telling you because they do what? They lie. Reference Roswell. They lie. Reference UFOs. They lie. They say they don't exist, but they obviously do. And now all of a sudden everybody's saying, oh yeah, they're here. They've been here. They've been here for a long time. And there is deception coming with that as to what they are. It's not what they are going to put it out there as being, but I'm not going down that track today. So I talked about artificial intelligence and transhumanism because people 50 years ago wouldn't have had a clue what that was talking about. But now we see that and we understand maybe that's got something to do with giving breath to the image of the beast in Revelation 13. Just an example. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which the three first horns were plucked up by the roots. Now, I do believe that those three horns are the three city-states that I mentioned. The little one, I think it's pointing at the Great Reset. Something to do with that, quite possibly. I'm not being dogmatic here, but it's a little one. You didn't see it coming. Maybe it won't exist on a map. Maybe it has to do with the great revelation of what these things are coming from space. And they'll lie to us and say they're people from other universes here to help us. But there's this leader, and he's here And all the nations of the world, which is really three, will bow down and say, okay, you're in charge. I don't know. We need to be open to the possibilities. And I don't care if, as I say this stuff, some people think I'm an absolute whack job. I can read in the comments and see that there are people who think I'm a lot worse than an absolute whack job. That's okay. I don't care. I'm trying to make the point. Be open to what might be coming. Be open to the likelihood that deception can be far more deceiving than it is now. And that the masses will readily follow along, a la, look at the masks on the sheeple. Look at the people lining up to take the death jab and lining up their children to receive it. And we go, what are they thinking? What can they possibly be thinking? And yet they worship and just follow along and do whatever they're told. The great deception, to be followed by the great reset. We just need to be ready. We need to be ready. We need to be informed. We need to be spending time in the Word so they cannot deceive us. And we need to have the faith given us by God, pursuing the faith that enables us to stand firm and tall in the face of whatever they might bring at us. I need to be willing to pay the price. What's the price? It could be death. It could be poverty. It could be isolation in a camp. It could be who knows what. But don't forget, Daniel saw this vision and the vision that is to come. Daniel saw these visions before he stood tall in the lion's den and wasn't afraid. He understood the practical application of it all. He applied it to his life and how he lived it. He applied it to his faith and how he exercised that. And I want to get away from talking about that way. My life and my faith. I want the two to be one. I want the two to be one. I don't want there to be any line of demarcation, separation where I think about it differently. I am my faith. I am the servant of the Lord. Humble and lowly though I may be, I have very limited abilities and powers and intellect and everything else, but I will be faithful. That's who I am. And if that's who I am, then nothing can separate me from him. Nothing. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Revelation 13, 1-6 talks a lot about speaking blasphemous things, the secular government. And secular government does, that beast, speak blasphemous things, but this one is going to take it to a new level, maybe a level that, like, well, I'm God, and I'm here to show you what these things are really about and to answer all your questions and to help you evolve transhumanism into something greater. Okay, we'll keep going because we definitely need this. We definitely need this after all of that. And the scriptures are organized this way by God on purpose. Right after the image of the beasts in Revelation comes the vision of the 144,000. He gives comfort, reassurance. This is where it's going. Doesn't matter what they do. This is where it's going. This is who I am, and you're with me. You're good. So after that horrible, scary stuff, as I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came out before him. 1,000 10,000 served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were open. Let's go through this quickly. This is a throne room scene. All of the major prophets have a throne room scene, and this is a throne room scene. We've got all the nations. We've got their boasting. We've got these empires, the beasts. They will be judged. Go read Psalm 82. Go read Psalm 89. Like a man, you will die. They will be judged. Their end will come. And this divine council here, because thrones are placed. What does Jesus tell the 12 apostles? What will they do? They will judge in the end, the 12 tribes of Israel. They will judge. Divine counsel, all of that is here. And this picture of God, white, fire flowing from his throne before him and all those who serve him. There is no way you can read this and think that those four beasts that we just read about stand a chance. Books are opened. They're going to be judged. The end will come. And the lake of fire, as it's pictured in Revelation, here it's fire flowing from his throne. And to you and me, God's throne is mercy. I flee there daily. God, grant me grace. Help me. Forgive me. To us, it's mercy. The fire purifies me from all my sin. To the unbeliever, it is judgment. In Revelation, the image of the prayers of the saints ascending from the altar, and then from that same altar, coals being taken and thrown down on the earth in judgment. What is judgment for the unbeliever, for the rebellious, is salvation for us as the children of God. And the court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. I looked then, because the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking, that little horn, and as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. This is not sequential. What happens to the big beast is just put out there first. These other kingdoms that we talked about, Babylon, Median, Persia, Greece, they're going to go away, but little remnants of it still stayed around for some time. But when it deals with the beast that doesn't die, the beast of Rome that never went away and doesn't go away until it's thrown into the lake of fire, that's a different deal. That's final and over. There is nothing after that. Now, very important stuff. Same time here. I saw in the night visions. And it's interesting. I saw in the night visions, and I just caught this, is also what it says about the beast appearing. Like, this is separate and almost kind of above and beyond. I'm just throwing that out there. Haven't really taken time to think it through, and I saw in the night visions. So the answer to the other beast, which he saw in the night visions. And behold, with the clouds of heaven, there came one like the Son of Man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. What we have here is the passage from Daniel that really was the linchpin to the understanding of the Jews of Jesus' day and before as to the two heads in Yahweh, that there was more than one. Here we have, and we saw it in the pillar of fire and the the pre-incarnate Christ being there. But here, the pre-incarnate Christ appears, and what is he doing? And that's who this is. This is Jesus. This is Jesus. And how does he appear? Riding on the clouds, with the clouds. How does Jesus say he's going to come back? What does he say to the Sanhedrin? He'll come back on the clouds. And they lost it. What did he always call himself? The Son of Man. The Son of Man. The Son of Man. Yeah, Ezekiel used Son of Man all the time for himself, saying human one. I'm a human one. But this, the Son of Man, when the Jews of Jesus' day heard him say Son of Man, this is where they went. Daniel, dominion, equal with God. This is where they went. Jesus. And it blew him away. And how does Jesus say he's coming back? He's coming back with the clouds of heaven. Who undoes the beast and judges it in the end? It's Jesus. It's Jesus, the Son of Man. Powerful stuff. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. This is my Son, with whom I am well pleased. Today I have begotten you, Psalm 110. And to him was given dominion over all. That's what the beast wanted to take for itself. The beast is always trying to undo what God does. The beast is always trying to undo what God does. And I have to pop this up here. I was going to do it before, and I forgot. As we are talking about all this stuff in the news, this thing, it's a wing. They say it's a jaguar. It's from Mexico, apparently, these artists in Mexico. This winged beast is this huge statue now outside the United Nations. Got wings, the jaguar, or a lion. And they call it the guardian of international peace and security. And if you go and look at, and the colors, yeah, it's kind of Mexican colors, but they're also kind of other colors as well. And I don't know what to make of this thing yet, but when the UN, whose bookstore that's there within the United Nations is called Lucis Trust, Lucis Trust. I don't trust what it is that they're doing with this thing. But if you go to 1 Thessalonians 5:3. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come upon them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. And what is it that this thing is supposed to be about? The guardian of international peace and security. And I think it quite likely the fact that it's covered, even though it's kind of got the Mexican flavor to it, Mayan, whatever, that it's rainbow stuff, even rainbow on its wings. That all ties into undoing God's order, the LGBT stuff and the Baphomet. All of that rolls together. I'll probably do a video on that thing sometime soon. But his dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So in spite of what the terrible, awful beasts intend, in spite of what they are allowed to do, because they are allowed to do what they do, because God is being patient. He is being patient because he still wants to save more souls. But Jesus is in charge. He is always in charge. It was portrayed and prophesied in Daniel that he was in charge. And it is prophesied and portrayed clearly in the book of Revelation that Jesus is in charge. Now we got to stop here. I wish we could get all the way through the 7th chapter, but we can't. We will pick up next time with the interpretation of the dream, and we'll be able to visit some of these things again, because there is just a lot here for us to take in and understand. I thank you for listening. I pray that this ministry, this teaching is being a blessing to you. I invite you, give this a thumbs up, feed the algorithm. It really does matter, no matter what the platform. I also encourage you to subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure and hit the notification bell so you're made aware when we put out a new video, and share this video with others. That's how we get the word out. We're growing, we're advancing in views and subscribers and people following and all of that. A big part of that comes through you sharing this information with others. And do drop by and pay us a visit at decodingthedeception.com. You know our name, then you know how to find us. This is Matthias 76. Together, we're going deep in the word so that we can decode the deception. God bless and have a great day.